Hello, everybody. Welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. I have a confession for you today. I have a problem, a trimmer problem, that is. I own this trimmer, and I own this trimmer, and I own this trimmer. Now, these are just the ones I kept after getting rid of some, and I just bought 2 more trimmers. So I just bought this trimmer, and I bought this trimmer. All right, what I would like to do with you today is talk about why I own the ones I own. We're going to do an unscripted and trial run of these 2 new Holtz trimmers and just share some experimentation along the way. Hopefully, this will help you decide which trimmer might be right for you, especially if you've been eyeing the new Holtz trimmers. All right, so let's switch to the overhead and get started. All right, first up, this is the trimmer that I currently use. It is by Stampin' Up. However, I have discovered that this is the exact same trimmer that is now offered by Spellbinders. I believe the Spellbinders trimmer is either white or gray, and the blades that work in the Stampin' Up version, you can use the Spellbinder blades. I think I have one here for you.
Good show.
So here we go. This is my old blades, and the blades on these slide style trimmers get dull very fast, which is part of the reason why I have so many trimmers. So here's what the Spellbinders refill cartridge for the trimmer looks like, and these are the Stampin' Up ones. I use these, as you can see, I labeled it. I use this one for cutting plastic. I use some for cutting magnet sheets, which I use to organize and store my dies. If I have rough photos that I need to trim down, I will use one of them for that, because as soon as you cut anything besides paper, with these, they go dull. What I like about this trimmer in particular, though, is that it also has a scoring blade. I prefer to use an all-in-one cutting and scoring tool because I find storing and swapping the tools back and forth irritating to me. Now, I know some people much prefer a separate scoring tool, but this is what I prefer, so that is another reason why I have multiple trimmers. Let me put these away and then I'll be right back. This Fiskars trimmer solved the problem of the dulling blades, but it can't do some of the tasks that this one does, namely gutting the middle of papers is much harder with a rotary style blade. And it doesn't have a scoring blade on it. Now, I'd owned previous Fiskars slide trimmers before, and I always found they cut crooked. I don't know why. They just never could give me a straight line, especially when I'm cutting off the branding strips of a sheet of pattern paper. I'd always have to just slightly tilt the paper to get it straight. But this one, I think, has been better for being straight, and it stays sharp, but it doesn't have the 2 features that I like from this trimmer. Now, the big honkin' trimmer I'm not going to bring back on screen, but that one is another rotary style trimmer that's not supposed to go dull, but it doesn't cut thicker things, and it's just huge. So that's the reason why I've got 3 current trimmers. All right. Why buy both of the newer Holtz trimmers? Now, I know I believe this one came out first, correct me if I'm wrong, and then this one came out more recently as a slide trimmer. The reason I bought both is that this trimmer can cut thicker materials like chipboard. And so sometimes I do that type of cutting and I want a trimmer that can handle that. When I bought the huge Fiskars rotary trimmer, I thought it would be able to handle the thick stuff, but it doesn't. So this is why I've got 2 new trimmers. This one, because it does have the sliding and the scoring, the cutting and the scoring in the same trimmer. And it has one new feature, if you haven't seen this before, that might be a little bit of a time and muscle saver, which I'm hoping to do. So let's actually just dive into this one first. All right. See if I can get this open. Let's get some tools out. So I purposely did not script this video in any way so that you can see just what an ordinary crafter does with these tools. So now if you want lots and lots of details, Tim Holtz does have all of his trimmers in one single review video. I will link you up to that down below in case you want to get his take on it, because I mean, he designed them, so he knows better what's going on. But as an end user, it's nice to get a regular crafter's perspective on things. So here we go. There's nothing else in that box. I'm just going to toss that aside. All right. It comes with 2 scoring blades and it comes with 2 trimming blades, which I believe you can just pluck out. I have watched Tim's video, so I do have a little bit of heads up on this. Now, he said that the scoring tool and the cutting tool are not designed to fit on the tool at the same time, which might be a deal breaker for me because I find that kind of annoying. But I'm going to stick it on there. Okay, he said that you're just supposed to kind of tip these channels apart from each other to take things in and out. And they should, okay, see that one fell out. They're supposed to just click in place. And if they slide, nope, that one's not in all the way. Okay, so it's a little bit finicky to get it in there. I didn't hear an audible click, but maybe I just need to put, okay, that one clicked. Okay, that one clicked. I don't know if the mic is picking it up, but I felt clicks for those. So I'm going to set this one off to the side. I'm not sure how I'm going to protect that blade while I put it in storage. I have heard from some other users a couple of messages I've heard about these going dull very fast. I think when you're talking about these slide trimmers, which have a V-shaped blade, so these V-shaped blades are for these slide trimmers so that you can cut forwards or backwards. So I'm not sure how I'm going to protect that while it's off to the side. Let's get to that feature that I had mentioned beforehand, and that is this kind of spring-loaded action. So it's got these, that's off camera. It's got these spring clips here, both at the top and the bottom, that keep this bar up. So you're supposed to be able to easily just slide things under and out when you're done cutting, and you just press it down and slide. Does that feel rough to me? I feel like I'm seeing it feels like there were like little slivers of plastic in there from the manufacturing process. Okay, it feels a little rough on the slide to me. Like maybe it's feeling the bumped edges of the grid that's on here. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't feel like the blade's catching. I think I can feel it as it runs over these bumps. I'm just gonna guess that's what that is now. Yeah, because it gets really smoother over here. And particularly in this zone, and then it gets smoother down here. So somewhere in this middle zone, I'm feeling that. All right, let's grab some paper and try cutting. Okay, I just grabbed a sheet of white because I have plenty of white and we can cut and play. Before we do that, let's go ahead and open this one up so that we can see them side by side. Pardon that noise. I want to be able to look at these side by side because I believe the size isn't too different between these two, which I'm really hoping will make this one a lot more practical to use on a regular basis. Because I almost never pull out. Ooh, it's significantly heavier. Okay. Let me see if I can zoom my camera out a bit. Okay, you'll get a little bit more of the background going on here, but at least we can see just about, let's zoom a little bit more. Okay, now we can see the entirety of both trimmers, and you can see my lap. All right. You can see that this trimmer, if I put these kind of level at the end, this trimmer is ever so slightly bigger, definitely taller, because if you look at them this way, and then this trimmer is slightly wider this way. Let's see, if I pick up this one, you can see that the slide trimmer is slightly wider. This one says it goes to 6 inches. This one also goes to 6 inches. So what's the difference? Oh, this only goes to 1 inch on this side, but this goes to 2 inches. So that is the width difference right there. That is kind of nice because my other slide paper trimmers have only typically gone to 1 inch, and this gives you a little bit more room to do smaller trims on this side. That's kind of nice. I believe, let's see. Okay, this one does have, both at the top and the bottom, it has ruler extensions. Now, I know there's not a lot of markings in between 6 and 7. You can see, what is that, 6 3/4 right there, but there's not 6 1/2. And that looks like maybe 6 1/8. So that might be 6 1/4. So I might have to add some tape to get some accurate measurements on here. I know Tim talked about just do some math and cut it off from the other end. So like if you needed a 6 1/2 inch cut and your paper is 7 inches wide, you just cut a 1/2 inch off from the other side to equal that. Yes, and that's annoying to me. So it just depends on what you were looking for. This only goes to 12 inches. So if you need to cut regularly on paper that's larger than that, then that might not work for you. I actually find that I am annoyed with the length of the arm on my typical paper trimmer because it goes out to 17 inches and I never cut anything past a 12 by 12. So I really just need it to be at that 12-inch mark. And this one has the same style of pullout and it does stop at that 12-inch mark. Now I'm curious if this is less wide than this one. And here's that pullout. So yeah, see, this is what happens to me when I'm trying to put my trimmer on my desk. This extra long arm always runs into something. I mean, yes, I've got extra trimmers on here, but it's always running into something. And I'm finding that irritating. So that is one of the reasons why I wanted to try the Tim Holtz trimmer, because I like the idea of having this shorter length. So this 13-inch mark pretty much lines up with the bottom of the Tim Holtz trimmer. So it is 4 inches shorter altogether. And like I said, it does have that bar at the top and the bottom. So if you like cutting down towards you, you've got that option. I always cut up at the top of the trimmer. So you've got that option. And if you're a sideways trimmer, I know some people like to use their trimmers this way. You definitely have options for that as well. I like that we've got the measurements in the middle also. It is inches and millimeters, both at the top and the bottom and the middle. So if you're on the metric system, you're covered also. Now, I believe the grid lines are not metric. I think those are purely empirical measurements. Yeah, quarter, half. Yeah. So these are not metric grid lines. However, I'm just now noticing, let's see if the camera can pick it up. There are some special etchings in here and some dashed lines for some common-ish sizes. Now, I believe that's probably going to be card making. I see 3 by 5, 2 by 3.5, and then the opposite direction, 4 1/4 by 5.5. So there's your card size, and then the opposite direction, and then the 3 by 5 opposite direction, 4 by 6. Oh, there's 5 by 7 down here, and then it probably doesn't have the opposite direction because the 7 would go off the end. So that's kind of nice. These are hard to read, especially my eyeballs are old and they've never been great to begin with. So these are hard to read. However, there is a trick with permanent Sharpie markers or Copics, alcohol, any kind of alcohol marker. This is a fine point Sharpie. I do have a thick point. It's a different brand. I think it's a Bic permanent marker brand. But the fine point will actually get, and of course I can't see very well, so I'm going to hold this up to my face. Okay, it sort of worked. I'll see if I can hold that. You can definitely see the marking on camera, and if I can get it to focus, it's definitely more readable. So I might take the time to, and then let me do this part for you so you can see a little bit better. Okay, I went out a little bit of a line there, but the thing about permanent markers is that they're alcohol based, and so you can easily erase them with just rubbing alcohol. So if you make a mistake, you can clean it up and do it again. Now, they're called permanent markers, but we all know nothing's permanent, and these will wear off. I'm curious to see how long it will take for it to wear off. I'll finish marking that up later, so you don't have to watch me do that. So let's cut some paper. I think that's the thing I started to get to, but I wanted to compare these two just a little bit before we started cutting so that we could compare the cuts as well. Okay, I'm going to leave that folded in because this is the way I prefer to cut. Okay, so this is supposed to easily slide in and out. You hold it down. Okay, so here's the thing about the scoring blade being on here is that I'm only reaching to about 10 and a half inches. So this is going to have to pop out. I'm assuming that's going to be the same thing. Yeah, this is going to have to pop out if I want to use. Now, I don't think there's any convenient place. Maybe. I'm imagining creating some kind of little pocket to tuck under here, but I think it is standing up taller than the base. Let me see if I can hold that. Yeah, it's definitely taller than the base, so that won't sit flat on the table. But maybe I can create some kind of little pocket here to keep it at least on my tool so that when I do need it, I can pop it in. I'll have to think about that. Maybe a little engineering. Maybe I can talk to Tim. I don't talk to Tim. Maybe I can leave a comment with Tim that maybe a little add-on piece that could hold the extra blade while you're not using it could be a thing. I bet he's got the connections with the tonic people, so he might be able to do that. Okay, we still haven't cut paper. Have you noticed? All right, okay, you're supposed to put this down, and even just, so you don't have to hold it necessarily, even just pushing down on the blade. Okay. How straight does that feel to me? That feels that way. Oh dear, it seems slightly smaller on this end. Am I completely lined up? Okay, I want to cut. Okay, so this is my paper. That's the edge I just trimmed. I'm going to put a little check mark because that was the edge I trimmed. It's definitely very straight and clean, but I say straight, meaning the line doesn't zig or zag at all. But when I cut off this measured piece, it didn't end up being equal at the top and the bottom. Let's cut off a side piece. I've got it bumped up there. And when I slide it over, it definitely appears. Oh, okay, going backwards was a little less smooth. Okay, that is 1/2 inch exactly. Okay. Does that side look a little big? Okay, this side looks slightly, ever so slightly different. I don't know if that would really matter in the end, but this one is definitely shy. I mean, I didn't measure it, but this one, so let me zoom back in. Oop, wrong way. Okay. This one is almost making it exactly to the 1/2 inch mark. But when I turn it around, don't know if you can see that gap. It's slightly off. Okay. Well, I think I cut that one. So I'm just going to, let's try this again. Let's go out to like 1 inch or something. Here's the inch mark. Does it look? I push it all the way. Oh, that's the nice thing about this trimmer is that I don't have to worry about holding this up while I slide it to the position that I need it to be. It's already lifted off the paper and you can slide it back and forth to whatever position. And I do that sometimes when I'm gutting paper. So I'll slide it down here to line it up and then I'll start a cut. So, or sometimes I want to cut from the bottom for a particular reason. So I do find myself sliding this back and forth occasionally. And that is much better with this system of these springs. Now, in terms of, I wonder, okay, I'm just going to do a little check on this again. It's very close that time. Now I'm just going to like cut back and forth. Okay, it's definitely not as smooth as what I'm used to with my other trimmer, but it's going back and forth there. I'm curious, actually, since I almost ran over that piece, how thick can I do? Okay, did 2. This is probably 80-pound cardstock. Okay, I'm finding that I have to like really hold my paper, especially if it's not already bumped up against the ledge. But it's doing 2 thicknesses of cardstock, no problem. Let's see how much thicker we could get. And I'm going to bump this up against the ledge just to give it a boost here. I'm really not used to that spring yet. Okay. Ooh, 3 is pretty tight, but it is doing it. Let's see, the bottom edge. Oh, I don't know if I can get this to focus. The bottom edge has a few little fuzzies. You can probably see those. So the top 2 pieces look fine. So I would say no more than 2 pieces of like an 80-pound cardstock. So that's what I typically do. So that seems fair to me. If you cut from the bottom. Yeah, I definitely feel like I have to use more pressure on my wrists and my hands. I have unknown, maybe it's just age, I don't know, unknown kind of aches with my thumb and my wrist these days. And so I am a little worried about that. I wonder This is inconvenient, but it might take the pressure off my wrist. But I really like this spring action so far because it will just move and I can just keep going. Okay, I do like that. Let's try a little gutting. I'll just grab another piece of paper. Because on my other trimmer, I would have a hard time seeing exactly the marks. And even though, I'll say I'll mark it at 1 inch, so I will gut 1 inch here. And this little line is supposed to tell you where it will start cutting. So 1 inch, and then I will go down to 11 inches. And this looks wider to me than this. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little over up here, so maybe the angle that I have is making it start off a little bit lower. Let me see. Okay, if this is exactly it in the inch, both of these lines should line up. It's pretty close. I can just pop it apart there. Let's keep going. Well, see, this is what I usually do when I'm sliding blades. Okay, there you go. I had just finished a cut. I rotated my paper to start my next cut, and I wanted to slide the blade to start my next cut up here. So I'm used to holding it up to do that sliding. So retraining my brain not to do that. And retraining my brain that I don't need to lift that up to get my paper out. Okay. It's not always super smooth under here, depending on if your paper is uneven for some reason. Like mine is uneven because it's hitting other things on my table. My table is a constant mess, so it's always going to be hitting something. Okay, I just started that cut down at the bottom instead of starting it at the top. Okay, the blades seem to have been caught on the paper where I was trying to stop, and it did not. You can see it ever so slightly was off from that edge. So 1 inch, I mean, if I try it from overhead, I'm wondering if I can get it more accurate. So now my paper is 10 inches long. So I need to stop at 9. Okay, that was closer, I thought. Okay, that felt much. Let me get my face back on the camera. Okay, that felt much more accurate to stand and look at it from overhead. So I do gutting on a regular basis, so that will be something that I may have to either just live with the imperfection of the angle that causes a slight difference in the measurements versus standing overhead and getting it more accurate. Most of the time, I'm not that careful, and my other trimmers were not that easy to see either, so it was always off already. I was hoping that this would be a little bit better, but maybe it's just that sitting and looking at it angle causes a slight difference, and that might be just a user thing and not a trimmer thing. All right, but I've got some frames that I can do something with. I'm going to save this because I'm working on a project right now that needs a 12 by 12 frame. in white. So that I will set over there. Okay, if I think of something else to try on this one, we'll go back to it. Okay, this one is significantly heavier. All right, when I watched Tim's video, he said he was getting comments from people about it not cutting properly. And the thing he said was that this carriage, and you can barely see it on camera, but it has a slight wiggle to it, and that you have to kind of push it or twist it inwards in order to get it to engage, because it is cutting up against a metal bar in here. And I am not going to be able to get that very well on camera. Let's see. So there, you can see that little screw. This is holding on this metal bar, which has a slight sharpness to it as I'm running my finger over it. So I'm going to be careful not to really run my finger over it. So the blade engages with this bar, and that is what makes this blade self-sharpening. And so you're not supposed to have to replace this blade. The nice thing is, if this gets damaged or dull for some reason, maybe you've taken it somewhere and it just got bumped, whatever, you can replace this cartridge. So you don't have to buy a whole new trimmer. So this does have a replacement part. I like that. I think he was smart to think of that ahead of time. Let's see about... Ooh, this is smooth. Okay, he does say there's some kind of gear system in here that allows the blade to, I guess it gives some force to turn the blade so that you don't have to push on it. So now I'm curious, if I don't do that twisting motion, but I'm still getting a decent cut. Okay, there is a slight dip between the plastic and this black thing, and that's where the blade is gliding against. It doesn't cut on that black thing because it's cutting against this metal, but there is a slight dip, and my thin cut kind of got stuck in that dip, and as I was trying to pull it out, my finger did start to slide against that metal, which I could feel could be sharp. So that is a little concerning. I don't have a lot of pinch power these days. I thought it was because my fingernails had gotten really, really short. But some of it I think might be coming from my thumb. So trying to get these little things out of that groove could be a problem. So, let's see. If I start off with some accurately straight, so it's pushed all the way up against, so that first one is not going to be accurately straight. So now this is a perfectly straight line. Let's see. The smallest measurement I could try and get to on here looks like 1/2 inch. So, okay. Can you see that kind of fuzzy edge on there? That's a technical term, fuzzy. I can see some coarseness to the edge here, and I had not. So let's go ahead and trim off that. Okay, I just did it again. I ran my finger along that edge, and it didn't cut me, but it feels sharp like it could cut, and I'm a little worried about that. So let's try this again. Make sure to engage and cut. And that looks much better. If we compare it, that's the one. If I hold these up, can you see the difference there? This one definitely has a ragged edge, and this one definitely has a smooth edge. So you really do have to engage that blade to get it to cut right. Okay, so this trimmer would take a little bit of getting used to if you're definitely not used to that. And I feel like some of my twisting action isn't really engaging. Okay, I haven't even used the oh, the glide yet. It does pop back up also. That is nice. So then you can get into a rhythm. So these are 3/4 inch strips and they're not getting stuck down in that groove. I did want this trimmer for getting these making these super fine adjustments, because when I am trimming off like branding strips or something, or if I'm cutting apart like a sheet that has tags or other kind of cut apart printed sheet, getting them just right often leaves, an unfinished edge. And so I wanted this trimmer to be able to do this really fine adjustment, because I find that the slide trimmers, they just kind of chew up the paper if it's too close to the edge. Does that make sense? Have you had that experience? I know it happens all the time with my current trimmer. Let's try it on this one. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to put this, let's just use a single piece. So this channel is much narrower than what the channel is on my other trimmer. So maybe it will be less of an issue, but let's say I want to just line up my paper just past that channel. And then I'm going to hold my trimmer down now, because I can't hold on to the paper. I definitely have to do, okay, see, here we go. This is what I'm talking about. When you're trying to get those super fine cuts on this style of trimmer, it just doesn't do it. If you get that paper, I think because when you're sliding, it slightly pushes the paper down into that channel. And so if it's too close to the edge just pops into that channel, and it's just roughing up that paper because there's not tension to the paper as it's sitting across this channel. I hope that makes sense. That's my guess. Like kind of thinking about the science and physics of it. That's my guess, that this provides more tension so that the paper is kind of pulled as you push this down. This side pulls and this side pulls so that it makes this middle part tight. And when you slide it through that tight paper, you get a clean cut. But if you're right on the edge, it's kind of pushing that paper down in. All right. That is one of my pet peeves about this style of trimmer. Maybe it's one of your pet peeves. So this style of trimmer, you can get that right up. Okay, this bar does kind of block my view of where the paper is. But because I know this does not lift up out of the way, but I do know that if I look, I am finding it a little, okay, I can kind of see right there. If I just try and barely line that up, engage the blade and slide, okay. It only cut part of it. Let's see. Oh, I felt the paper. Can you see? I felt the paper push this way and it created a wrinkle so that it didn't cut all the way. So I wonder if I have to, okay, you have to use the bar to engage it. So you can get these tiny strips. I don't know how tiny. Here's one of the things about these slide trimmers. You can see it a little bit. There's some fuzz that gets caught up in the the grooves of this, and that fuzz actually interferes with smooth cutting. So I always clear. Can you see that fuzz that came out of there? I don't know if you can see that piece as well, but this fuzz, was a few spots in there, interferes with the clean cut. So you do want to clean that groove out. And I was going to try and match up. Let's see. This one's a little bit wider, but that was probably just here, let's put it over. That was probably just how I adjusted it. I mean, you can get some fairly thin cuts on that, but this one's definitely better if you find yourself needing. Okay, why did it click? Did you hear that click?
Sure.
Okay, you definitely have to hold this bar down. Okay, this twisting motion, I can feel it in here. I'm a little worried about that. I was kind of hoping that this would be my more full-time trimmer and that I would use this one for gutting and scoring. Because if I've got to switch back and forth between, okay, you definitely have to hold that piece down. If I have to switch back and forth anyway, depending on the task that I'm doing, I was hoping that this one, although moving this thing around isn't going to work. This one is heavy. I'm not sure where I'm going to keep this to make it easily accessible for fine detail cutting. Okay, I may have wasted some money on this one because if I'm just using it for trimming off those funky edges, I'm hoping maybe I won't get those funky edges with this one. Let's do it. Let's try the scoring and let's try how straight it is for cutting off branding strips or some cut aparts. So let me grab that and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I pulled out this sheet, which is a much older Jen Hadfield paper, but this is a great test for how accurately I can get these to cut apart. So let's start with the branding strip. I'm going to, do I do that? But I think I will tend to move it out of the way. Because this is a narrower channel than my other trimmer, I'm feeling like that's pretty good. Okay. So that's not too bad. I don't know, can you see the ever so slight black edge that was left from this cut? I'm not seeing any of the, well, just a smidgen. I think that was pretty dang good. Okay, so if I push this here, that side from this angle, this side looks like it's lining up, but when I get over here, this side looks slightly off. Let me stand up. I don't know, it might be ever so slightly shifted. That looks pretty good. Okay. So there's just an ever so slight leftover remnant from the piece above. I can see the navy blue where this one connected, though, you know, honestly, if I didn't see these right next to each other and know that was there, I probably wouldn't notice it very much. I can see the brown, but again, I'm wondering if I were to put it on top here, let's grab some of this white. If I were to put it on top of, what do you think? Do you think you would notice that that edge is slightly different than this edge over here? I'm not sure I would notice that necessarily. Well, okay, maybe I would. Yeah, I think I would. But not enough for it to bother me, probably. So let's do these ones. Okay, I can kind of see through the groove. Okay, you see? Let's go back to that white. Can you see the pink edge? This is the little type A part of me, which isn't intense, but it is there.
There.
And I see a little tiny. Can you see this little tiny paper curl? It did take off most of that pink edge, but not all of it. Now, part of that is just me knowing how far it needs to overhang, because honestly, I can't. I mean, the overhead, you can see it a little bit, but I was having a hard time seeing where this is running over the metal edge. But that took it off for sure. Okay, let's keep trying this. What if I bring it down closer to me? Maybe what I need to learn is that these finer detail cuts need to be done where I can see better. Imagine that, seeing better helps. Okay, this one still has some white on the edge, but it's not bad. It's not bad. I would probably just let that go. But part of what I want to make sure is that when I'm doing grid layouts, I want my pieces to be the same size so that when I'm lining up things in a grid, I'm not getting, this overhang that can tend to happen if your trimmer isn't cutting nice and smooth. Now, nothing's going to be 100% because we're just human using the tool. If we were machines, we could get them perfectly straight, but we're not. So this one is, I can see ever so slightly there, but it's not enough that it's going to throw the whole grid off necessarily, depending on what style of grid you're doing. So I'm thinking this is doing okay. I'm not too upset with that. I think that's doing okay. Let's try the scoring blade. Now okay, popping this apart. So I just kind of reached under and I pushed up on this side. I know I'm pushing down with my thumb and up with my fingers, and that's popping that blade out. Again, storing this so that the blade that is facing up is the new blade. The blade that is facing down is the current in-use blade. And then, okay, trimmer blade. I almost lost it because it was just sitting here. That is going to drive me crazy. Let's put this in here. Okay, I heard a click, but it feels... Okay, that did not actually click in because it just kind of popped out. Okay, now it's sliding better. I heard a click and it's sliding. That means it's in there. So if I wanted to score this at every 1/2 inch, I'm going to use this middle line. Okay, let's see. Sometimes scoring blades will score too deeply and then it will actually cut the paper. That one did a very nice job. I thought it was going to be too deep based on how it looked, but then it wasn't. So I was surprised. And I didn't need to put too much pressure on it. So if you'd like to make pop-up elements, or if you like to do scoring to add texture to projects, if you are a card maker and you're scoring your cards. Okay, I think I pushed less hard on this one and it has more of a rounded edge. I think I pushed harder on this one, which has more of a solid, crisp edge, I guess is the best word for it. Let me see. Okay, that's the half inch mark because it's 2 tick marks over. Let me push harder and then okay, I don't even think that hit the paper. So push softer. So this one has a crispness to it that this one does not. It's not showing up well on camera. I don't know if you can tell a difference with the bends. I know the lighting kind of makes it a little too bright to see. Can, can you kind of see how that one looks smoother and this one looks sharper? I think that picked it up. All right, so definitely pressure sensitive. And I like that crisper one, so I'm going to make sure I give it a good push. And again, it looks like it's going to tear the paper, but it's not. Of course, that depends on how thick your paper is. This is a typical cardstock, and that's what I typically work with. So I can learn that pressure and get consistent results. Oh, except for I didn't measure that correctly. All right. Well, after I shut down recording for the day yesterday, I realized I hadn't tested out this trimmer with what it's kind of intended for, which is these thicker materials. So I pulled out the chipboard that I typically use. This is 50-point chipboard, which is pretty thick. I thought I had some thinner chipboard to give a try. I'm a little worried about the thickness of this, so it'll be a test, all right. So let's see. Remember to hold that down. Twist. Actually, it cut quite nicely. It wasn't as easy as cardstock, but that is very doable with this level of chipboard. Let's see, how thin can we get? I don't want to cut this chipboard up too much because I might want it. I use this for dividers in my storage systems. Largely, that's what I do with it. Every once in a while, I'll make like a project book cover out of it, but mostly I use it for organization. So, you can get these very fine trimmings. So that works nicely. I'm not even going to cut up this other one because I just want to leave that whole. So yeah, doing the job that this one was designed to do, it's working nicely. So that is what I have to add in for that part. I hope that gives you a good idea of what to expect from these trimmers and if they may or may not work for you. Again, sometimes you just have to use them over and over again until you find those spots that you like and you find those spots that you don't like. And I found some of each with both of these trimmers. This one is going to bug me having this blade not be able to fit in there, but I am getting more accurate cuts so far with this than my old trimmer. So I'm going to turn this one into my workhorse trimmer for the time being and just play with it over time and see how my opinion changes and see if I can come up with a solution for this. And I will come back in the future to give you an update on both of these trimmers. And like I said, if you have any questions, I could possibly do quickie updates on those as well. So until I am back with you next time, I hope you have an artful day. So I am popping back in here with one more update. I took my trimmer on a 3-day crop and put it to use for that whole time. I had to pack it in a suitcase to get to the crop and hopefully pack it safely enough so that it wouldn't get damaged in the transit. Now, from the surface, it doesn't look damaged. I do want to talk about an issue that I am having using this trimmer, and that is if I have the blade in the middle of the track and I push it down to start my cut, it is actually hitting, the blade itself is hitting the plastic. Can you see this line up to here and even a little bit in here where the blade actually catches on the plastic and doesn't land in the groove? I'm wondering if I push this down it's still catching on the plastic. I have to kind of push the trimmer blade over to get it to line up in there. Now, I'm not having that problem at the beginning and end. Where does it start catching? Somewhere in here, it starts catching. So if I'm starting the blade at the beginning or the end of the track, it's fine. But if I have the blade in the middle and I push, you can kind of even see how it's catching and pushing the blade upward. Oh, even that didn't get it past the... So this to me is just not good. I don't know if I say something to Tonic, if it's something that I'm experiencing, maybe something did get misaligned when I packed it on the plane. I don't know, but as soon as I started using it, once I got to my destination, I noticed this problem. So if I have any kind of update to that situation, I'll let you know. It's really not working for me at all. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with this. I did find a little bit of a solution for storing the extra blade on board, and I just taped a Ziploc baggie down to the top. And I feel like I can either tape this under or, I don't know, maybe pin it under somehow with some kind of clip or clamp. I haven't quite figured that out yet, but really this kind of hanging off hasn't bothered me yet. But this has, so I hopefully can pop in the future and let you know what's happening with this. In the meantime, I'm probably going to be using the rotary trimmer for now until I can get this figured out.